山上有一头大青牛，我看上它很久了。
公子，钟声又响了。
换一大，太许愿便没。你以为除了爱天才，渡他们一程吧？你
大师兄终于出手了。
谁爱打自己打去。
Chancellor Basan left the scholar's residence and walked toward the royal garden, where princes, princesses, and young nobles usually gathered. She knew well how complicated the politics there were. The rivalries among the emperor's children, as well as regional kings, were fierce. Yet she had no choice but to involve them in order to maintain harmony with the imperial court. Basan eventually approached the second princess, Ling Yusu. At first, the princess thought she would receive direct guidance from the chancellor, but she was disappointed when she realized she was only asked to recommend 2 names of scholars. Even so, Ling Yusu still gave her suggestions. She mentioned her younger sister, the 7th princess, who was indeed intelligent, but preferred to play around. In her heart, she hoped that her sister's departure with Basan would keep her away from Kinmu. She also mentioned Prince Minyu. Although they often quarreled, Yusu admitted that Minyu's talent could not be underestimated. Basan accepted the suggestions and asked Yusu herself to deliver the good news. The second princess was pleased, seeing this as an opportunity to build new connections. Soon after, the 7th princess and Prince Minyu arrived at the scholar's residence, joining Qin Mu, Chen Wanyun, Yunke, Wei Yong, and several other young figures. In front of them, Basan announced that all of them would be appointed as provisional imperial academicians, studying directly at prestigious places under her guidance. She added that each of them would later also have a senior or academic uncle who had already been reported to the emperor for formal appointment. The statement shocked everyone and stirred their curiosity. Basan did not stop there. She declared that the 7th princess would be taken for field training for several days. In addition, she was granted the privilege of choosing several scrolls of divine arts and techniques from the heavenly record hall, while the others would have to wait their turn. Hearing this, many were surprised, but also felt a mix of envy and excitement. Qin Mu, too, was given special permission as Baisan's student. He was allowed to borrow 5 ancient scrolls. When he entered the first floor of the Heavenly Record Hall, he found various manuscripts from sects across Lizhou Prefecture. One of them was the Red Cloud sect's technique, which he found uninteresting. But soon, he discovered the legacy of the Yuyuan Empire, including the arcane technique Zhengdu Zaitian and the Sunset Sword. These scrolls amazed him, as their level was far above ordinary sects. Qin Mu suspected that the Yuyuan Empire was once an independent kingdom before being annexed by the Eternal Peace Empire. He even recalled Yuyuan Chuyu, a young judge in Lizhou who was likely a descendant of Yuyuan nobility. After consideration, he chose the Sunset Sword because it suited him as a more energy-efficient technique compared to the Mountain and River Stomping Sword, which consumed too much power. Next, he selected a second scroll titled Soul Guide, a rare technique that allowed its user to draw souls from the afterlife or even enter it. He wondered to himself, could this technique be developed to the point of reviving someone who has just died? The third scroll he picked was the Rune Command of the Spirit-Shifting God from the Great Mountain Sect, an art that used runes to borrow the power of spirits and gods, which he thought aligned with the path of painting. He only took 3 scrolls, knowing that more than that would only burden him, especially since there were still many techniques in the Heavenly Demon Codex he had yet to master. After the registration process, he left the place. 2 days later, the imperial decree arrived. Qin Mu was officially appointed as an imperial academician with the rank of 6th grade official, and he received the privilege of accessing the 3rd floor of the Heavenly Record Hall at any time. At the gate of the Imperial Academy Mountain, Basan was already waiting. The second princess, Ling Yusu, was seen dragging along her younger sister, Ling Yushu, trying to convince her that studying under Basan was a rare opportunity. Secretly, she herself was envious. But the real surprise came when the awaited figure finally appeared, Kinmu, carrying strange belongings, a battle axe, a butcher's knife, and a white fox tucked in his backpack. Basan smiled with satisfaction, while Ling Yusu could hardly believe her eyes. The story then continued with their journey together with the Green Bull, who transformed into a dragon steed, a mix of humorous yet tense interactions with the Kirin dragon guarding the gate, and their travels toward the border of the barbarian empire. Along the way, Basan reviewed the scrolls chosen by Kinmu and Ling Yusu. Kinmu's choices, Soul Guide and Spirit-Shifting Rune, left Basan both puzzled and impressed, as they were not popular but carried great potential. Meanwhile, Ling Yusu's choice of the Azure Sky Lightning mantra seemed more promising in the eyes of many. With Basan's guidance, the princess successfully practiced it until she struck lightning down upon a river. Yet Basan emphasized that true strength could only emerge if their foundations were solidly established first. At last, the group passed through the Kingman route, the borderland separating the Eternal Peace Empire from the Barbarian Empire. Beyond the vast forest ruins that formed the natural frontier, war could only break out during the day. When they arrived, a guard recognized Kinmu and immediately ran to the city, leaving everyone stunned and wondering what he had done in the past. Not long after, the blare of trumpets echoed from the city. "Divine Physician Qin! Divine Physician Qin!" From behind the gates, 100 soldiers marched out, escorting an old general who immediately knelt to pay respect to Kinmu. He thanked him, saying that Kinmu's medicine had saved countless soldiers' lives at the frontier. Kinmu responded humbly, simply asking whether his insect-purifying pill was truly effective. The general nodded with high praise, explaining that the concoction could withstand the sorcery of barbarian warriors. He was then introduced to Chancellor Basan and the 7th princess. But General Bian, known for his hard heart, looked on with disdain. He worried about the safety of a princess being in such a remote borderland. Calmly, Basan declared that full responsibility rested on her shoulders and asked for cooperation. In the end, Bian relented, especially since he deeply respected Kinmu's great contributions. When Basan revealed their intent to enter barbarian territory, Bian was shocked and refused, warning of the dangers ahead. But Basan firmly asserted that she had a network of spies there. After long thought, Bian finally granted permission, even gifting them gold ingots as provisions, since currency from the Eternal Peace Empire was worthless in the barbarian lands. They set out. Dust rose as the Green Bull carried them across vast ruins toward the barbarian border wall. Out of the mist emerged spined, bone-crusted beasts and ranks of barbarian generals shouting fiercely. Yet Basan stood tall atop the bull's head, flung open her cloak, and revealed a chest tattoo of a spiked skull. At once, the general saluted and withdrew. Kinmu and Yusio were bewildered at the sight. Basan then explained that in the past, she once served as the Martial Han of the Barbarian Empire, a title equal to a martial emperor. It was no wonder that the warriors of the grasslands still held her in reverence. Upon reaching the border city, they were met with both honor and ridicule. One barbarian general sneered that Basan's name was tarnished for siding with the Eternal Peace Empire. Basan only laughed, declaring she was not of the grasslands, but a warrior who had won 100 battles there. Hullinger grew curious about the tattoo, and Basan explained such a mark could only be bestowed with the blessing of the Grand Shaman. Long ago, she and her master came to the grasslands, fighting undefeated until she was granted the title of Martial Han. Kinmu and Yusiyu were ever more astonished to learn just how great her reputation truly was. As they climbed through a mountain pass, another barbarian general blocked the way. He accused Basan of betrayal for leaving the grasslands, adding that many young heroes wished to reclaim her title. Basan replied calmly. This time, she had brought her disciples to walk the path she once trod, even to challenge the sect of the young shamans. Her words seemed to belittle Kinmu and Yashu, yet they only fired up the princess's determination. Basan went on to say that their ultimate destination was the Golden Palace of Roland, the very place where she had once earned the title of Martial Emperor by blocking its gates. Now she intended to do it again. The barbarian general mocked that her past victory had only been possible because of her master, Heaven Han. Basan admitted it, but declared that she had nearly reached that same level herself. Hearing this, the general immediately sent a winged wolf to report to the Golden Palace of Roland, then saluted, addressing Basan by her old title, Martial Han. Their journey continued. Basan then spoke of her master, Heavenblade, who once shook the entire grasslands and was hailed as the Spy Emperor. Kinmu was stunned. So the butcher's grandfather, whom he had always known as a terrifying slaughterman, had once been a legendary figure. The deeper they ventured into the grasslands, the harsher Basan's training of Ling Yuxiu became. She broke down the princess's weak foundations and reforged her through sword drills, incantations, and combined combat techniques. Basan demonstrated how weapons could be fused with spellcraft. Every hammer strike wrapped in fire arts could shatter Kinmu's sword in an instant. This training opened their eyes. Ling Yushu was enthralled, Kinmu was inspired, even Hulinger and the Green Bull gained insights. They sparred in pairs, sharpening their strength until drenched in sweat. Kinmu and Yushu grew closer, though the mood shifted when Basan's face suddenly turned grave. With a thunderous shout, she summoned forth the heavenly spirit Cliff. Orange light soared tens of meters high, glowing with star patterns. But soon, the roar of war closed in. Hundreds of barbarian soldiers charged atop beasts, attacking the cliff with swords, divine arts, and spells. Though formidable, cracks slowly appeared. Basan even had to summon a second cliff to hold back the assault. Yet the enemy numbers were overwhelming. Just as she was nearly pressed back, another war trumpet split the skies. A new army arrived under General Torimu, not ordinary barbarian troops. They marched with discipline, wielding advanced sorcery and tactics. Commands rang out. Wind! Giant gourds opened, releasing tornadoes that ripped through enemy ranks. Rain! Thick clouds poured down swords of water that pierced through enemy skulls. Thunder! The sky drums resounded, their vibrations crippling thousands of barbarians. In an instant, the rebel host was annihilated, while Basan stood tall, her eyes gazing into the distance, fixed upon the Golden Palace of Roland. Those who tried to surrender were not spared from slaughter. By order of the Grand Shaman, General Torimu commanded his troops to cut down anyone still breathing. Even an old general who had already knelt was killed, his head pierced through by a pillar of swordlight that pinned him against the cliff behind. Chancellor Basan drew a heavy breath, then waved her hand to dispel the heavenly spirit cliff. Torimu's soldiers cheered wildly, raising the severed heads of their enemies as trophies. But Kinmu remained silent. To him, the sight was far too horrific, a world utterly unlike his homeland. Torimu then stepped forward. His eyes narrowed, scrutinizing Basan. "Are you truly the Martial Han?" he asked. Basan nodded without many words. Torimu gave a thin smile, then sneered. In that case, let's see whether your reputation is truly deserved or merely exaggerated tales. Without warning, Torimu launched his attack. Dozens of sword lights rained down like a meteor shower. But Basan only swung her blade once. In an instant, all the sword lights vanished, and Torimu's body was sent flying, crashing into the ground with his armor split apart. Silence fell over the battlefield. Torimu rose slowly, his face pale yet filled with respect. He dropped to one knee and swore, "From this day forth, I shall treat you with full honor, as decreed by the Grand Shaman." Basan replied coldly, "If the title of Marshal Han is to be taken, then let the Grand Shaman himself be the one to claim it." From that moment on, Torimu's army escorted them toward the Golden Palace of Rollin. The journey lasted an entire week. Along the way, Torimu treated them with feasts and honors, as if Basan were a most distinguished guest. Yet behind her stern expression, Basan knew well. All of this was nothing more than a sign that the Grand Shaman truly intended to seize back the title of Marshal Han from her. With youthful fervor, Kinmu offered himself. He wanted to steal back the lower half of his master's body using the arts he had learned in his village. But his offer was firmly rejected. Basan's gaze sharpened, her voice heavy with authority. "Your master himself failed to guard his own body. Do not interfere. Only I can handle the matters within the Golden Palace of Rollin. Your duty, together with the princess, is to guard the mountain gate." The air grew tense. All of them realized the great storm at the Golden Palace of Rollin was already awaiting them.